This aiming technique provides unparalleled control. Why is my hand empty? Well, if I grab my mouse, I'm still doing the exact same thing. What's remarkable about this is that my primary contact points with the mousepad are my fingertips, rather than the actual feet of the mouse. You can even see the mouse is slightly hovering. The whole point of doing this is for control, so you're able to move the mouse exactly where you want it to go. And the way it does this is actually quite elegant, and the control itself is highly dynamic, which is what makes it so effective. With your fingers placed higher, so the mouse is purely on its own feet, if you swipe around and increase the pressure into the pad, the friction increases and you slow down a little, but the difference isn't all that significant. Whereas if I'm aiming with my fingertips on the mousepad and increase the pressure, I can even come to a dead stop. This is incredibly useful for so many different elements of aiming. Reducing pressure during a flick gives you insane flick speed, then increasing pressure at the end of a flick gives you amazing stopping power. When tracking a close range target, you can reduce the pressure for a faster glide, or if you're tracking a target far away, you can increase it for a slower, more controlled glide. Sniping targets in the distance and need pixel perfect precision, well, you can dig in and find the exact pixel you want. In a way, it's almost like using mouse acceleration, but it's far more intuitive. You have complete control over your glide at all times. Unfortunately, modern mice sensors have very limited lift-off distance options, if any. This means the amount that you raise the mouse, which really should come down to personal preference, is determined more so by the mouse you're using instead. That being said, something is still better than nothing. In my case, with the G303 Shroud Edition, the lift-off distance is so low that I can only raise it a tiny amount before it stops tracking. So instead, the sensation is less about lifting it off the mousepad, but rather taking the weight of the mouse off the mousepad, so your fingertips take over. On something like the Model D, which lets you adjust the lift-off distance to 3mm, I can use more clearance if I want to. So how do you actually do it? Well, first up, if you're using a palm grip, it's not impossible to do, but it's not going to work nearly as well as claw or fingertip style grips. If you'd like some info on mouse grips, I have a video linked in the description that you can check out. The easiest way to start is to grip your mouse the way you would if you were playing and aiming in a game. Then, without moving your wrist, take your fingers off the mouse. Put the fingertips of your thumb, pinky, and ring finger on the mousepad close to the mouse. Then, slide them along and scoop up the mouse. Once your fingertips reach the mouse, it's like you're trying to tuck them underneath. This will prop up the mouse, and the amount you try to tuck them underneath will determine how high you raise it. If you have your fingers resting further along, you may find that you need to bring them closer to be able to reach over the edge. It's important to learn to grip it this way because in-game, you're not going to have the time to lift up your mouse and mess around with it. This way, if you lose your grip, you can find it again almost instantly with a quick regrip. It may take a little practice, but before long, it'll become second nature and you won't have to think about the cues. Anytime, even if you're just watching YouTube, you can spam regrip your mouse when you're learning to do this. Before I move on, I'll reiterate that for the most people, and frankly for most mice, you're not going to want a dramatic lift. So if you're trying to force the extremes of this technique, it's probably not going to work right away. Better to start small and experiment from there when you become more comfortable. The technique doesn't only depend on this grip. The amount of weight we have resting on the mousepad is also a key factor, and we will primarily control this with our hand. Totally loose, when swiping around there's a fair amount of drag. But if we take some weight off our hand, as if we're trying to float it in that same position, the drag is significantly reduced. You can actually see the tendons here engage when I take the weight off, as they're helping to hold up my hand. My fingertips, hand, and wrist are still on the pad, they're just lighter. This feeling is key, and you'll have your hand raised like this when you're aiming with this technique. Try swiping around with this minimal weight, the glide should be nice and fast. This is what you'd use for faster aiming movements like close range tracking. To increase the friction and gain more control, we can do two things, either independently or at the same time. First, you can simply increase the pressure that you apply to the mousepad. Secondly, you can also tuck your fingers further under the mouse as needed when you want more control. This doesn't need to be dramatic such that it raises the mouse up, it's more like flattening them out and pushing them in. This can really put the brakes on, where the more you push your fingertips in, the more your mouse is essentially running them over, which jams it up. For tracking, you'll typically find that increasing pressure is best for adjusting your control for different situations. When it comes to flicking or needing stopping power, tucking the fingers in is most suitable. When you become more proficient with this technique, you'll likely find that you blend some amount of the two options together rather than exclusively using one or the other. With flicking or precision aiming, there are some really cool things we can do that would otherwise be impossible with a standard grip and mouse feet. Starting with a standard flick, applying some extra tuck into the mouse and a little pressure into the pad, I'm in a position where if I try to gently move my mouse, it doesn't go anywhere. The static friction is greater than the force I'm applying. But if I apply a burst of effort, the mouse moves, and due to that high static friction, as soon as I stop applying effort, it almost instantly comes to a dead stop. This is great for having flicks stop where we intend them to. You can still rebound your flicks, it'll simply give you a more precise zenith of the flick, whereas if you're trying to rebound or even dead stop a flick with low friction, it can be hard to land on the exact spot you intend to when it's so slick. When it comes to needing stopping power, say for target acquisition or target switching, this is what we can do. At the desired endpoint of your flick, really roll out your fingertips and jam them under the mouse. This will instantly stop your mouse while also providing a pliable wall for you to manipulate your mouse against. For example, you could flick to a target in a game like Valorant, jam in the fingertips for an instant dead stop, but let's say your crosshair landed just off the head. From here, you can essentially push your mouse against this wall you've created for an extremely precise micro adjustment over to the head. When aiming to the right, you jam in the pinky and ring finger, but when aiming to the left, it doesn't quite work the same way. You still do the tucking motion with your thumb, but it's not so much about jamming the fingertip in this way and more so about pushing this thumb knuckle down into the pad to stop the mouse. And finally, for precision aiming, we can have unparalleled control over the tiniest of mouse movements. To do this, we tuck in both sides and also apply a fair amount of pressure down into the pad. This locks our fingertips into their current positions, and from here, we can adjust the mouse around in our hand by essentially pushing against these walls. There isn't a huge range of motion, but that's sort of the point. You use this for very long range engagements. And within the range of motion that's available, we have incredible dexterity that simply cannot be matched without this technique. As far as techniques go, this is probably my favorite, which says a lot. I appreciate that it won't be for everyone, and your mileage may vary depending on your mouse and mouse grip. The idea that I can dynamically adjust my friction at any time is so incredibly useful to me, and it's something I'm genuinely surprised isn't more mainstream in aiming. Especially considering how much time and effort people put into optimizing the interface between their mouse pad and mouse feet. That being said, modern mice have a long way to go to better facilitate this technique. I don't know if they just don't know about it or don't care, but I would dearly like to see more robust lift-off distance options in future mice. I highly recommend checking out my mouse grip guide here to best be able to utilize this technique. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.